Item number 6, consideration of an ordinance adopting the 2014 Energy Code.
Make a motion to suspend the rules, read by title only, with short explanation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Now, is this going to read this one time only and put it up for adoption, or is this going to be the first one reading?
That was my understanding.
One time, one time only, short estimate.
No.
No.
No. No. I agree, no.
Would you please read the roll so we get an accurate count of that?
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Stuber,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
No.
Mr. Irwin,
Yes.
Mr. Horton,
No.
Mr. Richard Harris,
No.
Mr. Tripp,
No.
Ms. Freddie Harris.
No.
Motion fails.
Motion fails.
May I say something here?
Yes.
Brian's here, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that this is something that is mandated by the state of Arkansas.
That is
to
correct.
go into effect January 1.
He has no choice.
He has no choice in
He
this.
wouldn't have brought it to us if it hadn't needed it.
Let me just say this. You know, this was not talked about in our agenda meeting. I showed up tonight, and this is worded in a manner, I don't have a clue what I'm passing tonight if I vote for this. All it says is that we're going to institute these energy conservation codes on the citizens of Russellville because the state mandates it, and we don't have a clue what we're passing. And I have a serious problem with
Could I'd like to comment on that if I could, Mr. Harris. This is not something that the city of Russellville has anything to do with other than just...
The city of Russellville has an ordinance in front of it that has to be passed,
yes.
and I'm not voting for something that I don't have a clue what it says.
Hold on. Direct your comments about a question. Don't direct it toward the individual. And Mr. Holstein can explain this situation. And I can tell you probably once it's been explained, not to insult anybody's intelligence, but there's probably not going to be very many of us, if any of us, on this bench that's going to know what he's talking about when he gets through talking about it. So I wanted to say that. And this is something that has to be enforced whether we like it or not. It's not a matter of if we don't adopt it, he's still got to do it. That's bottom line. And I'm not trying to be snooty about that. It's just a matter of fact. Mr. Holstein and I have talked about this. Really, what happens if we don't adopt this? Well, it's going to be a problem.
The governor basically will require that our new mayor write a letter to the state explaining why we did not adopt this code.
Mr. Holstein, what happens if we don't pass this tonight? It looks like a lot of them are against it. What's going to happen if we don't pass this?
You still have to enforce it. At state level, it'll be enforced no matter what we do as a local municipality.
It doesn't go into effect until the 1st of January.
Right.
So, how about, why don't we just put it off until December? Personally, I'll say that it doesn't matter whether we pass this or not. I'll feel it.
It's going to happen.
I'll have to deal with it in my everyday life. I'll have to deal with it one way or another. Because it may change what it is I can sell and not sell. So, but why don't we just pass this until next month?
Brian, explain this to us what this is.
Basically, it's an energy code. It's a new character out there. It's not typical to what a building official or an inspector would do. This is a code pertaining to the quality of a home. A thermal envelope is what they're asking for. And it's going to make changes to the building code, commercial and residential. And what we're doing right now is we're looking at the 2014 Arkansas Energy Code, which is the IECC, which is the 2009. And basically, we have rules set forth in front of us, and the state has already adopted it, and it will come into effect January.
Okay, now, does this affect just the new homes that's gonna be built, or is this gonna affect each and everybody?
New homes.
Just the new ones?
New homes.
New homes, and it's mainly gonna, and correct me if I'm wrong, gonna affect windows and insulation around, around the bottom of slabs and things like that. Now, I'd like to point out that this is a code that is approved by the state of Arkansas and mandated by the state of Arkansas. Now, all these codes that's out here, whether they be plumbing, electrical, heat and air, or building codes, the state adopts what they call a minimum code, and all municipalities or the people that's governed by those codes are required to adopt that minimum code or something better than that, superior to that minimum code. They cannot adopt something that's not as good as that minimum code, but they can make that code more rigid. But this is something that's coming. It doesn't. And December is plenty of time to pass this.
And I think I want to speak in which, regarding what Mr. Harris said, I agree with him. This is kind of the first time we've seen this, first time the community's seen it. So my vote no was not to necessarily, I'm against adopting this, but I'm against, hey, put it in front of us, vote it, adopt it, and put it in place.
How about we do this, ladies and gentlemen? We'll have an education meeting for everybody, and you will be able to filter as much of that as you would like.
Mayor, I have one more question for Mr. Holstein. Is what you're proposing us to pass identical to the state minimum?
Yes.
Okay.
It is the state minimum. That's all we're asking for.
Those no's ready to change their vote?
I think we ought to have an educational meeting and let everybody understand what the changes are.
Can I
Sure.
have a second? In January, every year, we have one of our first duties in our first meeting is to organize the city. And part of that is to set our own rules of procedure. And in those rules of procedure, it's defined that normally, under normal prosecuting, an ordinance is supposed to be read 3 times. And I know all year long, we suspend that rule, we move along, we go on. But tonight, one of our members feels uncomfortable with moving ahead of this, and I do not see where we gain anything by forcing him to vote on something tonight, suspending our rules on something that's not going to be put into play until 2015 anyway. Therefore, no, I am not ready to change my no to a yes, and in fact, I recommend that we suspend the rules only as far as making Mr. Smith not have to read the whole ordinance, but for the first reading only.
Second.
It's in play, gives Mr. Harris time to get comfortable with the answers he needs, and we got plenty of time to suspend the rules next month for the last 2 readings, put it in play, and January rolls around and the world keeps turning. So that's my
Do we
motion.
have a motion to amend the action that was taken? Was that your motion
That's
to
my
read
motion.
it one time?
Read by the title only for the first
First reading?
only.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions in regard to the motion?
Second on that, Mr. Horton?
I believe I got it from Mr. Tripp.
Okay.
But thank you.
Motion and a second to read one time by title only with a very short explanation for the first reading only. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
An ordinance provide minimum energy standards for the design of new buildings and structures or portions and additions to existing buildings that provide facilities or shelter for public assembly, education, business, mercantile, institutional, stores, and residential occupancies, as well as those portions or factory industrial occupancies designed primarily for human occupancy by regulating their exterior envelopes and the selection of their HVAC, service, water, heating, electrical distribution, illuminating systems, and equipment for effective use of energy, providing for penalty and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would adopt the 2014 Arkansas Energy Code, which by state law through the Arkansas Administrative Procedures Act will go into effect for the entire state of Arkansas, January 1st, 2015. It also sets up the penalties for the city and provides for those penalties will be heard if there's a violation.
All right.